Good morning, everyone. We are transmitting live from Miami at the Pangea Plus Studios with my collaborator, Maria Yvette Duran, and right here at the microphones, Carolina Chavez. Today is Wednesday. We have started March. Spring will be here soon. Very happy to be here with you again in this, our fourth edition of Maria Arrieta Live of Sustainable Fashion News. Good morning, Maria. Good morning, Caro. Very happy. I think this is one of the happiest days of the week because I get to be here with you, sharing a lot of information, a job we make really happy for you guys. Again, we're always going to tell you, we're going to ask you to share with all your friends, with all your family, to download the app Pangea FM so you can hear us through Pangea Plus every Wednesday at noon. We would like to invite you also to follow us in our social media in Maria Arrieta Net in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and very soon in the podcasts. We would also like to invite you. We have gotten a lot of calls from friends and people that have a lot of questions about the program. In fact, we're going to start right now with Carolina with a very interesting topic. But first of all, our main topic today will be water, the vital element for all of us. And from there, a lot of topics. And Carolina also is going to answer some of the questions from some of the people that have asked and had written to us. Specifically, what is sustainable fashion and what is all this cycle? Very interesting, and some of the doubts that I even have. Welcome. Any topic that you would like to talk about, remember this microphone is for you, and it's you can use it. So let's begin. That's right. Well, they have asked us this week, what are some examples of sustainable fashion? For example, if the upcycle is sustainable fashion, if vintage clothes is sustainable clothes. I'm going to give you this graphic, very interesting. It has 7 examples. The first one is clothes that are handmade, that we ask the tailor to be made for us. That's the first example of sustainable clothes. The second example is green clothes. These clothes are the ones that are made out of recycled material or organic material, etc. The third example is clothes that are made of really good quality, and it doesn't get old because it's old-fashioned, but basically it lasts very long because it is made from really good quality. The fourth aspect is the ethical fashion, or we also call it fair trade. This is all the clothes that are made from native people, indigenous, all the clothes that watches the animal rights, all these ethical aspects of fair trade is also considered sustainable fashion. Another aspect are the clothes that are repaired or recycled. It's best known as upcycle, and which means it's a piece of clothes that it's broken or a little bit damaged or anything. You add up some elements. The idea of the upcycle is to increase the value because a lot of the textiles that are recycled, when you separate them, they don't have the same value, and they're used to fill up the pillows or to fill up the furniture, so it loses the value. The upcycle means that you put textile elements and you increase the value. Another aspect is renting, exchange, or when we lend clothes or when we borrow some clothes. We have already talked about the exchange parties. All this branch is also considered sustainable fashion. And the last one is the second-hand clothes or vintage clothes. The difference here is that second-hand clothes are clothes that are not old. It's just simply we're not going to use it anymore, and another person can use it. There are a lot of initiatives like Goodwill. Last week we talked about Goodwill, the clothes that I had bought at Goodwill. It's secondhand, but it's in perfect conditions to be used. Vintage clothes are clothes generally from decades ago, like from the 70s or the 80s, but that are in perfect conditions to be used. Or even sometimes these clothes are new. They were never used before because they are kept at the designer's storage room. They even have the tag. So vintage is not necessarily used. It's simply clothes that are from other generations that are in good conditions to be used. So this graphic was made by the Dr. Anna Bismarck in 2017 for Green Strategy. This is a webpage that talks about ecological initiatives. So what she mentions is that ideally, when you buy or consume something new, you should put it together with a lot of articles that are from all these graphic of sustainable clothes. For example, if you buy a new blazer, you put it on with some old jeans, etc. The ideal is to precisely to save this topic about consumption without justification, well, is to combine elements. I'm going to go to your closet and see what I can take. Thank you very much, Caro. The truth is that it is very important, all these specifications. There were two things that I did not know if they were sustainable, and one of them was the vintage. I was curious about this topic. Well, thank you. So we continue with the topic of water. Basically, I'm going to give you something general of what goes on with the fashion industry and how it affects the water. There are a lot of factors, a lot of causes and effects that happen in this topic, in the contamination, in the shortage and waste of water. And it turns out that the fashion industry is the main topic of this program and how it is affecting. So what is the cause of the contamination of rivers and oceans? And you're going to hear us repeat these a lot. This is the insecticides. Definitely this is something terrible what it's causing. This is a natural disaster. The microplastic and the trash in general. These are the three basic elements. There are a lot more, but these are the three basic elements, and we want you to have this very clear. What are the effects of these? There are 4 general effects. There are more, but we would like for you to summarize this for you. In number 1, we have the loss of biodiversity. But what is this? It is a variety of ways of life in the planet. So what is happening in the plants, the animals, and even us? It has changed a lot. It has been generating a big loss. Further, you're going to be able to see all the numbers, all the news that are about this topic. In second place, we have the drought. This is a very worrying topic. And the third point, it is the water stress. And what is water stress? I get stressed, but I had no idea what was the water stress. It is very simple. It is when the demand of water is greater than the amount available for a determined period of time. This is actually happening, and it is very worrying. How is it that I want water and there's not enough water? Well, it is happening. In the fashion industry, and if I'm not mistaken, it is one of the most it was the dirtiest industry, and this is why water is running out in the planet. It is very tragic, and we have to take action and become aware. We have more information ahead of us, and obviously we're going to talk about important articles, but we wanted to clarify some terms that We are very familiarized, but it is good to retake them again. It is ecology and environment. That's right. We're going to mention these terms, and we would like for you to understand the difference. The ecology is the science that studies the relationship between the living beings, and the environment is everything outside that is related with the living beings. So, environment is hot, cold, rain, etc. And ecology, basically, we're talking about the living beings. So we're going to start with the topic. Pay a lot of attention. Please don't go, because when we start talking about this program, we talked about a lack of connection. We see what is happening on the other side of the world, but we don't really know, or simply we just don't think that it has anything to do with us because it is far away. So this topic is vital for us to be able to understand that relationship. So stay with us. We're going to describe. We already talked about the Sustainable Development Goals, and right now Maria is going to tell you a little bit more and tell you why we are going to be mentioning those again. But the main objective is to understand what is the relationship that we have with the environment, with the poor children that are on the other side of the world, with the disease, with the drought, but above all, with the fashion industry that we have already mentioned. We are all part of this chain. It doesn't really matter the level or the place that we have at the production chain. If we are all dressed, because I want to think that everybody gets dressed during all day for all of our activities, we are all part of this chain. So, yes, that's right, Caro. We are talking about this topic again. We talked about this in the first program. You would be wondering, why do we insist? We have already mentioned it, but we have been organizing the program, and we selected, according to our opinion, 9 of those 17 goals from the United Nations that are directly linked to this fashion industry. And how can we adopt them so we can help, specifically talking about fashion? Let's remember that this was in 2015. All the members from the United Nations, they wanted to end poverty, protect the planet, and to guarantee that all the people have peace and prosperity for the 2030th. So these goals are given to be developed until year 2030. So there are 17, and we only chose 9. From these 9, we can start with goal number 2 that we thought that it was very important, which was zero hunger. Objective number 2, and this one basically says that according to the progress and the economy, it has been increasing a lot topics of hunger in specific countries, but it's been a very big problem, and it is thought that it's going to increase because population is increasing and resources are diminishing. We have some interesting numbers here. It is estimated that 821 million people suffered from malnutrition in the year 2017 as a consequence of degradation of the drought and the loss of biodiversity. In 2017, Asia represented 63% of the people that were hungry. This is 2/3 of the world population. Let's remember that these goals from the United Nations about sustainability, they are at the global level. So all these numbers are at a global level. More than 90 million children younger than 5 years old have a very dangerous low weight. We have the third goal. It's good health and well-being. It is very, very short. We're going to be very brief so you can understand what is good health and well-being. What does the United Nations say about these? It says that 1.6 million people, they live in a very fragile environment where there are a lot of long crises, and combined with very poor sanitary services, they present a very significant challenge in the global health. 1.6 million, that's right. Objective 6, clean water and sanitation. It is estimated that 1 out of 4 people will be affected of shortage of water by 2050. The shortage of water nowadays affects more than 40% of the world population. 80% of residual waters turned into waterways without a right treatment. The water stress affects more than 2 billion of people, and it is thought that this number is going to increase. The world has lost 70% of its humid zones, natural humid zones in the last century. 70%. This is a terrible number. Let's continue with the goal number 11. Not less important than the other. All of them are really important. This is sustainable cities and communities. What does this mean? 50% of the world population. We're talking about 55% of the global total population. 4.5 billion of these people live in the cities. And it is expected that for 2050, this population will be increased up to 6.5 billions. And what does this mean? It will increase almost 50% by 2050 in urban cities. And what is happening with the water? It is having a shortage. That means we're not going to have enough water. Objective number 12, responsible consumption and production. It is the main consumer of water in the world, and these represent almost 70% of sweet water available for human beings. Only 3% of the water in all the world is drinking water. And the human beings, we consume it faster than what nature lasts in. Take it back again. So let's continue with goal number 13, which is climate action. At the global level, the sea level has increased 30 centimeters since 1980, and it is thought that it will increase between 30 and 122 centimeters by 2100. The annual losses caused by catastrophes are related with the climate, and they reach thousands and millions of dollars, without mentioning the human impact caused by catastrophes. This is an important number. 91% of these are related with the climate, and between 1998 and 2017, 1.3 million people have lost their lives, and they left 4,400 millions of people hurt. Very, very important, this weather topic. I want to say something. The sea level has increased 20 centimeters since 1880. I thought it was 1900. Goal 14, life below water. This is vital. The oceans of the world, their temperature, their chemical composition, currents, and life are the motors of these global systems that make the Earth an inhabitable place. The ocean covers 3/4 parts of the Earth's surface, and it presents 99% of vital space of the planet in volume. The ocean has almost 2,000 species identified, but the numbers are a lot more, even millions under the sea. There are a lot of different species that have not been identified. The ocean contamination comes from different places. it has reached really alarming levels. It says that for each square kilometer in the ocean, there are an average of 13,000 pieces of plastic, waste plastic, for every square kilometer. It has been registered a 26% increase in the addition of the seas at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Even 40% of the ocean has been affected for contamination, overfishing, and the loss of coast habitats and other human activities. The ocean absorbs around 30% of the carbon dioxide produced by humans and lowering down the impacts of global warming. More than 3 billion of people depend of the marine biodiversity and coast for their living. Uh, at the global level, the value of the market and the resources and industry of the sea, it is estimated to be in $3 billion per year. This is 5% of the world gross domestic product. Very strong. Let's continue with goal 15, life on land. Right here, you're going to hear a lot of numbers. I understand that sometimes it is difficult to understand the numbers, but that's all of our program. It's in podcasts, and you can listen to it again. But it is important, and we have been saying all this. It is a little bit tedious, but it is very important to know where each number coming from and how it is affecting us. So if we create conscious about each of these numbers, we can make very soon a change. So we say that goal 15 is life on land. Around 1.6 million of people depend on forests for their living. The forests have more than 80% of all the earth species of the animals, plants, and insects. In all the world, 2.6 million of people depend directly from agriculture to earn a life. The value of these ecosystems for the life and well-being of people is of 1.5 billion per year. And the mountain regions give between 60 and 80% of the sweet water of Earth. Goal number 17, and the last one, is partnerships for the goals. This alliance is necessary in order to be able to reach the goal, which is by 2030, which is zero hunger, zero poverty, peace and prosperity. Why is this so important? Because if there's no alliance, if there's no cooperation, none of these would be able to happen. The companies, the governments, the private companies, we all have to get together because only one of those cannot make it. Like we have already heard with all these numbers, this has to be a huge effort. That it can also be considered to be around $5 to $7 billion every year to make this change. So obviously, this is very, very important at the time that we have to conjugate these alliances. Right now, the main contributors are the governments that give 66%. The multinational companies like the World Bank and the European Union in a 33%, and the private sector that are companies, are NGOs, foundations, and individuals. This is only 1% that give money to these objectives, to these goals. Well, we have already talked about numbers. We already talked about how this is really important. And right now we're going to talk about what it is happening, what are the initiatives. In 2017, a report was published from MacArthur Foundation. This foundation is best known for the topic of circular economy, that it's basically they work with academies, governments, and companies to bring this type of education to transform this lineal system that is how we work right now, basically. Right now, the lineal system is I take, I use, and I waste, and it's to turn it into a circular system, which is basically, it has big characteristics. It is a material that it's already created, and instead of being wasted, it comes back to become another material raw instead of creating it from zero. So that's why it is called a circular system. Of course, this is very complex, and we'll see why this is so complex with all the information I'm going to give you. The topic is that this report was given, and it was called Textile Economy, Redefining the Future of the Fashion. It consists of applying this circular system specifically to the fashion industry. We already talked about numbers that have to do with the global level, with how these populations have been affected by water, by drought, by hunger, all this related with water. We're going to talk here about specific effects of the water with the fashion industry. For example, like other things, it says that $500 billion are lost every year with the waste of clothes. Imagine if we could recycle a lot more. Imagine that all the clothes that we don't use, we could sell it. So that's the value that it's being wasted. One of the things that this report mentions is all the chemicals that are being used in the clothes. We're going to tell you like the basic information, not to go with a lot of numbers and information, but we're going to understand the base of this. What is the importance of this? The report talks about all the chemicals that are used not only in the process of making the textiles, but also in the chemicals that are wasted when these textiles we haven't have them at home. The report says that where you use the water more, it's in when planting and the use that we give to these clothes. For example, when they are planting the cotton, that it's a very thirsty plant, and at the time that we're using the clothes. In all this process, the production process and consumption and wasted, these two aspects is where there's more water consumption, when it is cultivated and when we use it at home. So let's understand why and what we can do about it. It also says, for example, that the production of textiles, including cultivating the material raw, like the cotton, like we have already mentioned, to understand a little bit, uses around 93 trillions of water annually. This is approximately 30 Gulfs of Mexico, only in the production and cultivation of the textiles. 30 Gulfs of Mexico. So we can understand the relationship that there is right now with what I use and with the droughts that there are in other places. It says, for example, that 20% of the industrial contamination of the water, 20% at the global level, it is caused by the dyeing and treatment of the textiles. Another fact that is also alarming, it is estimated that around 500,000 of tons of microfabrics of plastic being wasted during the textile wash. This is what is happening to us. It's after the production. This is what happens to us during the washing of the textiles, like the ones that are made based on plastic, like the polyester or nylon. It all ends in the ocean. And if we continue like this, by 2050, there will be 22 million of tons of microfabrics in the ocean. This is two-thirds of the fibers that are used right now to create these textiles. In Indonesia, there's a river called Citarum that has more than 200 textile fabrics along with it. These fabrics discard a lot of chemical substances in the water, changing the color of the river and devastating the local ecosystem. The chemical substances used in this production can be retained in these textiles that are already finished, causing worrying for their impact in the consumer and discard in the ecosystems during the washing when they are discarded after the use. This is another problem. When we are using the clothes, these clothes have chemicals that our body absorbs. Another big problem. Somewhere I heard that the water in the rivers of China changes color according to the station. Imagine how terrible is that. There's this substance that is called formaldehyde that it's classified as a cancer, causing cancer for the International Agency of Investigation of Cancer. And it is a substance, it is a chemical that is used in certain production processes. Right there, it's part of the problem.
Sí, gracias.
Thank you. Let's continue with the Helen MacArthur Foundation. It's a really important source for us. It is an entity, a very serious entity, and with very precise studies. I am going to give you some numbers, and these numbers that are being repeated, but it's a very big report. Basically, one of the all the studies that they made, it's how to redesign jeans. But inside all of these, the most important is that in the investigation that it was in 2017, they said in a report, a very precise, what those companies should do if they want to get together with this initiative. But what does this study have? We're going to give it to you very briefly, very soft. Basically, this redesign system consists and proposes recycling programs to educate the consumer. That each company assumes this role, that the chemicals that are used in this production process, that the chemicals that are harming a little less the environment, and the traceability. And I said, what is traceability? I'm going to tell you what it is to know where these raw materials coming from. So like these companies make that are assuming this proposal, what they do is that these tags say that it's following the procedures of this study. Not what I just mentioned. It's not going to say what I just mentioned, but normally it says something ecological, that it is following some of these norms. It is very important. This report also mentions, like Carolina said already, that allergic reactions and the breathing disease and the increases of cancer in human beings and the loss of lives is due to the contamination of the water because of the textile industry. This is very worrying. What did they say? That it is required to eliminate all these dangerous substances so we can allow healthy materials in the circular system, together with methods to eliminate those textiles that are still in circulation. What do we do when we wash a piece of clothes? This I read a little while ago. I'm going to give you this tip. Wash it with cold water. It makes the chemicals that are inside the soap and inside the fibers of the clothes not to degrade up to the point that when they get to the rivers and the oceans, contaminate more. Cold water keeps them, and the hot water makes them dissolve and disperse, and those elements can contaminate more. Those elements contaminate more. This is really important to know it. I will continue to wash my clothes with cold water. There's a very interesting fact that you will say, I'm not going to be able to do it, but I am trying to do it. It says that in the United States, a report says that if you use jeans 10 times before you wash them, you could reduce the use of water by 77%. I think it's worth it with all these facts that we have said and the impact that this fashion industry is causing. If we can do something, a very important job, with the only fact of wash my jeans after 10 times wearing it, that would be good. So we can help with that. This is very important, and these are tips that we're going to be giving through these programs. And Caro has other information very interesting from Levi Strauss. That's right. This company that is 100 years old, it was founded by Levi Strauss, and then from the very beginning they had these social ideas in which they were donating money so that women can study, always with a social topic in their philosophy. They have this distribution chain. Well, you can just imagine Levi's around the world. Its impact is tremendous, but from some years ago, for Levi's, this is not new. This is great news. For a lot of years, they have been making these studies. First, we have to know where this trash is. So they started with this first study. I think it was in 2017, and they're continue doing it, and it has given them a lot of interesting topics. Mainly, they discovered that the water consumed in the cycle of life in a pair of jeans of a specific brand, it's the same as 3,780 liters of water. Maria, tell us. Well, you said everything. This is incredible. We were organizing the program, and when I read this, I said, this is not true. Yes, it is true. You can even think of it as a horror story. It turns out that they did this study, and 3,780 liters of water is what they use in the complete cycle of elaborate this pair of jeans. And this represents 3 days of water to cover the necessities of a home at the United States. Only one pair of jeans, 3 days of water, right here in the United States, in a normal home. This left me astonished, and I think I have more conscious. All my family and friends are doing this, but we would like to invite all of you to really analyze and connect with this reality so touchable that is right in front of us, and that we cannot just look aside. That's right. It is time for us to see the fashion industry, for example, as we see the food topic. For a while, we have already seen that what is organic, a lot of details that we look in the food, or that we avoid from the food. So it is time to take a look at the fashion like this. We're talking about chemicals that the clothes are made of, that are in touch with our skin. We're talking about all the waste that we're causing. Even if we don't know, what Maria was mentioning about washing the clothes with cold water, when we wash it with hot water, they discarded a lot of microplastic, and they go to the ocean. And we have already talked about how we are destroying the biodiversity at the ocean for our contamination. So if we see everything is related and all of our activities are affecting the other side of the world in other aspects. You have, Caro, a very interesting fact on how the supply chain works in Levi's in the United States. We are mentioning this to understand how big is the level of their logistics. Logistics means the resources in all the steps. This is an example of a supply chain from where it begins until it ends. And let's take into account that all these supply chain uses resources, and all these reports that we are talking about have specified that in the planting, cultivation, and the use of the consumer is where it is more water used. So this is only the Levi's chain in the United States. The sources where the cotton is cultivated is in the United States and in Mexico. This cotton, everything that is cultivated is in Mexico or whatever they cultivated over there. And from there, one part goes to Mexico until Haiti, Egypt, Poland, and Turkish. Until these places, they turn it into a fabric. They dye it, they cut it. From there, they send this cotton back to Mexico. All the cotton is sent to Mexico, and in Mexico is where they dye it and they turn it into a fabric. This fabric, they send it to be cut and converted into the final product, like the jeans and jackets, and all these to countries like Mexico, Haiti, Egypt, Poland, and Turkish. And from these countries, they're sending these clothes to the distribution places in the United States that are in Mississippi, Kentucky, and Nevada. And from there are distributed in the United States to their different selling points. They sell it in wholesale, in stores, and online. All these only for the consumers in the United States. And the purpose of this supply chain is the incineration of the product, or the dumps. The dumps are the trash. I remember when I was little, we used to go to Puebla in Mexico, and there were mountains that smelled really bad. So there were trash mountains, and they are covered with grass so that they don't look ugly, but they smell bad. So back then, when I was little, I was in it was in the road. Right now, they are inside the city. So these mountains are the dumps that are discarding gases that contribute to the contamination, to the global warming. So this is the supply chain, and what this is looking for with this circular economy initiative is that instead of going to these dumps or to burn it, to turn it again into a material raw. So part of these initiatives that we are seeing is that this report was made by Levi's, and after that they started with their initiatives in order for them to attack all these waste system, the lineal system. I take, use, and throw away. Really, really good initiatives. We have one of the initiatives is that in their tags they put all this information that Maria mentioned, that washing with cold water, wash it less times, etc., to educate the consumer. One of the initiatives is to educate the consumer. Another initiative is called vintage. Don't get rid, which means don't get rid of your old jeans. Bring them and they help you repair it and give them a new life, because those jeans, if they're well done, well made, that's the quality of Levi's, they're gonna last for centuries. If they're broken or they're missing something, you take them to the stores and they help you revive your product. Another initiative is that they can personalize also or repair your clothes. Another initiative is to recycle and renovate. They invite all of you to bring your denim of any other brand or not necessarily from Levi's. You take it back to the store and they are in charge of renovating it to make it a new raw material. We're only talking about Levi's, but fortunately, there are a lot more companies that are adopting this. I want to mention something that is very important that we have mentioned since last week, talking about ecological wash. In the tags, for example, the initiative that Maria was mentioning of redesigning, one of the things that these companies should adopt that are taking this initiative is to put in their tag that are part of this initiative, because this initiative, what they do is to make a commitment. If you're part of this, you have to commit to certain objectives. So let's not go with the flow with the word that says ecologic, or when they put a tree, or when they put these symbols of eco or sustainable. Give ourselves a little bit more time of 2 minutes of thinking to know if they are really telling us the truth, if they are educating us, if they really have a recycling program. It's not that difficult like we would have thought. Actually, the only thing that we have to do, what I think as a principle, is to be a little bit more with our eyes open, consuming with our eyes open. Yes, it is very important before we close this topic of Levi's, something that you were mentioning and you made emphasis in this, and I want to say this again. Inside this supply chain, the two most important that are causing more contamination is production and consumption. And when we're talking about consumption, we're talking about us. So they repeat every time they have a report. We played an important role. I think the most important. By the time that we create conscious, we're going to push all these brands into a real change. So don't leave it on the side. Let's put our flag of war against all these. We can actually do it. It's in our hands, and it's really important. It's the consumption, and we are the responsible, even if we think we're not. Another thing that you mentioned, this is Levi's. But there are a lot more companies that are already working, and we can commit with you in every program, no matter what topic we're talking about, just to tell you a little bit about each company that are actually doing a great job. to have them, like, to expose them and recognize what they're doing well. For next week, we have something very interesting, especially for women. Tell us, Caro. Well, we're going to start celebrating the International Women's Day, and we have a special guest, but surprises. We're going to give them to you in our social media. We want to remind you to subscribe to our page, mariaarrieta.net, because right there we have news. We're sending emails with the resources and with a summary of what we are talking about. We're also going to have a podcast really soon. Also, we have our program in Spanish, and we already have our first translation in English. It is a voiceover. We already have it in YouTube, the second program. And the good news is that from now our programs are going to be in English and in podcast. If you're really busy or exercising and you can only hear us, you can also hear it. You can also have the opportunity if you go in your car. There's no reason why not you cannot hear the program live. So very, very grateful for your time. We're going to say goodbye now, Maria. Again, sad. I am excited at the beginning and sad right now, but very happy to be sharing with you this space. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for following us. We have really had a really nice answer from everybody, friends, family, and a lot of friends that are getting together with us, and surprisingly grateful. Not surprised, but because we know what we're doing, but very, very thankful with you, with the universe. So thank you. Thank you very much. And we hope we can see you next week with a great surprise. That's right. Thank you very much and have a nice day. See you later.